Folks, I don't know if you saw it this morning. We got PCE Core. PCE Core came in flat 6 months in a row. We've seen CPI be very sticky as well. One of the reasons is rent, owner's equivalent rent, AKA shelter costs. I am on a mission to tell people that rents are not up 5%, even though the Fed says we are. You know what? Maybe I'm wrong. We're going to have a conversation with Dana, who's gone out and done a lot of work for us. She's pulled rent information from lots of different sources. So we're going to find out what is going on with rents right now, not the last 12 months like the Fed stupidly calculates. What's going on, Dana?
Great. Thanks so much for having me. And I love this conversation because last week we spoke about the number of tenant inquiries and how that has been declining. So if you advertise your rental this year compared to last year, you're going to have fewer number of tenants interested in your property. It went down by, just around 20% there, which is huge. Right. So then the question is, okay, if you have fewer tenant inquiries, what's happening with rental rates and rental prices? So we put together the thing when the Fed puts it together is most likely the folks who are analyzing it are not in the market every day to know who has really good data. What data should we be reporting on? And so much for me to say that I've actually noticed that internally in our industry itself is that there's a lot of reporting and different based on the source. It will tell you a totally different story. And so from that and our insights into being in the rental space every day where we see rent prices. So let me just start with CoreLogic. So CoreLogic they actually just sent it out their August report. They said for single family rent prices, they're up by 2.4% year over year. It is the lowest growth rate recorded in history, but or the lowest since within the past 3 years. But with that 2.4%, that's obviously much higher than we have seen from other sources. The other interesting thing with CoreLogic that they mentioned is that the high-end rentals, so if you have a higher-end property, maybe you're an accidental landlord, those were up 2.9% since last year. So single family, the 1 to 3 unit versus maybe 4 unit and higher end rentals slightly more. Okay. What's really interesting about that is, so that's from CoreLogic. Now let's move over to Apartment List. Okay. Apartment List said that the median rent decreased by 0.7%. So now we have one source telling us it's increasing, one source saying that it has increased as we're entering the slow season.
One quick question, because I know I've read a lot of these reports because rent obviously is it's the thing that's keeping inflation high is this stupid calculation. CoreLogic is very clear that they've singled out single family homes. I don't know apartments. Is apartments also very clear that the data source is singles, or is it maybe all rental units on the platform?
This is all rental units, and you're right. Apartment List will attract more apartments, right? Because how Apartment List is structured is that how their feeds are set up, et cetera, is for multifamily. So that's a really good point there.
Yeah, and this is something I've been trying to highlight for folks. Again, we're talking about record deliveries of apartments and all of these things. I keep telling people, larger multifamilies, call it 5 and above, are getting soft. I can see it in my portfolio. Single families, not so much. And again, I think that's CoreLogic Apartments is kind of highlighting that unique twist.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And then Apartment List was also mentioning vacancy rates. So we presented last week Hemling's data that year over year was still at a 6.3% vacancy. We didn't see much change. Apartment List is saying that, yes, most likely because more of their sample set is their sample size is apartments. It hit 6.8%, which is the highest since the pandemic.
Yeah, it's very obvious to me that affordability is a problem, right? It's hard to buy a home, but still, people would much rather live in a home with a backyard and a garage than apartments. Yeah. And that's why you'll see vacancies higher in the part. You'll see turnover higher. I still see that in my portfolio. Single family homes, 8 years. Yeah. Apartments, less than 3. It's just
Yeah.
That's where we are.
It's such a good point. And then what's interesting is they, when Apartment List broke it down, they said 89 of the 100 largest cities saw monthly rent decreases. So majority of these larger
89?
89 of the 100. So they said, the rent decreased by 0.7%. So what that tells me is if these are the largest cities, are people moving to the suburbs and going to single family homes? To your point, there's a lot of questions like that come up in my mind.
All it does is tell me is the freaking Fed is wrong. It is mind numbing. Again, if they're still calculating, I think the last time I saw CPI shelter was 4.7%. If we just assume that is zero, when shelter makes up roughly 33% of CPI, you could very, very quickly get CPI under 1% if we had the right shelter costs.
Yep. I couldn't agree more.
It's like my.
You're hired to go ahead and run.
No thanks. I don't want that job.
And they're reporting. And then the other interesting thing with Apartment List is just the Sun Belt. And so what they had mentioned that they experienced the steepest year-over-year rent declines, and they attributed it to more construction and more construction of multifamily. That inventory has increased. Okay, so let's move on over to Zumper. Zumper has said, and Zumper is much closer to, they have more of the single family homes than Apartment List, right? So probably closer to CoreLogic and somewhere in the middle of what CoreLogic is saying and what Apartment List is saying. They said the median one bedroom inched up by 0.1% on a monthly basis. A two bedroom decreased. So it's just slightly up from there. Then what was interesting is kind of the year-over-year numbers that they give. And I want to highlight Minneapolis. They said rents are down over 9% annually as they have some of the largest supply growth in the Midwest. And so this is where I really want to bring up markets, because I think national trends are not going to tell you anything about your market. You really need to look at what's going on with construction, what's going on with population growth in your area, and what's going on with affordability to really understand what is happening. And then this morning I was online checking Memphis because Memphis is the only Tennessee market experiencing annual growth of one bedrooms of nearly 15% year over year.
Wow.
Yes. So I was researching a lot about Memphis today to say, maybe I should buy a rental property.
Yeah, I guess so.
In Memphis, or maybe it's too late. Maybe I should have bought it 12 months ago. But another interesting market.
Yeah.
So with that said, I always trust our data and look at our own data to say, okay, what are we seeing in the market? Especially we focus on single family, smaller multifamily. That's actually the mass market. And just so you guys know, 78% of rental properties are under 20 unit complexes. Definitely smaller is a much better indication. It was really interesting because it depends on how many bedrooms you have. And I think that is actually really important for you to track when you're looking to purchase. Because, for example, I remember when I was looking in Ocala, Florida for a rental, there was so much growth of 3 or 4 bedrooms that I kind of made this prediction that, hey, there might be an oversupply of that. And maybe 1 and 2 bedrooms is where I should focus. But of course, know your market, know what's going on. And so for us, just nationally, we were kind of closer to kind of between that Zumper and Apartment List numbers.
Okay.
So for 1 bedrooms, they went from $1,468 on average to $1,419 year over year. So they were slightly down. Yeah.
Okay.
2 bedrooms were up from $1,740 per month on average to $1,760 per month.
Okay. So 1%-ish.
Yeah. Now, the really interesting one was 3 bedrooms for us. And so 3 bedrooms actually increased from $2,266 to over $3,000.
Whoa.
And figure out, hey, is there some 3 bedroom that's at $1,000 a month? But no, it's actually just 3 bedrooms. I think that's the trend of what you're seeing with single family is people wanting more space and
Yep.
being willing to pay for it. And so
I think that's a sign of affordability, right? Again, I think again, one guy's opinion. I think a lot of people who are renting 3 and 4 bedrooms obviously have families. I think a lot of them, if they had their druthers, would own versus rent.
Yep.
But let's be clear, in a lot of markets, it's cheaper to rent than own today. And with 7% mortgage rates and record high prices, that's just a bad combination to buy. So increased demand for 3s and 4s kind of makes sense. And an increased demand means higher rates.
Yep. And again, it totally depends on your market. You've got to see where is the construction happening, where is the need, and you're right, look year over year at what those rental rates are. So I think kind of my key takeaway is it really depends on your market. It depends on what you are focused on. Are you focused on apartments and 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms? Are you focused more on single families? And what does that look like? So it was interesting to look at the data and say everyone has a slightly different take on it. There's nothing, with the exception of Memphis, where you see huge growth year over year across the board anywhere. And so, there's just that softening. I mean, it's up over $200 since pre-pandemic levels in monthly rent. But still, every market is going to be slightly different, and there's no home run markets that we're seeing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, folks, again, do the work, do the work, do the work. You got to check out hemlane.com. They offer a lot of resources tabs. They got trials. They got free versions. They can help you advertise your units. Again, go to their resource tab. It's something we don't talk about enough on this channel. Go to hemlane.com, mention ORAT. So if you do sign up, you get 20% off, the largest discount. But I tell you to go to hemlane.com for all the free stuff. The free stuff is amazing. Dana, thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for having me.